My lights. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Susie and Sparkle Show with our very special guest, world famous Bob. I'm going to go ahead and have Susie and I introduce ourselves, and then we'll let world famous Bob, who actually is my 22-year younger big sister, who is just a wonderful, wonderful person who has done so much for Austin in general, but in particular the LGBTQ community and its allies. So let me start with Susie introducing herself.
Hey everyone. Hey Sparkle. Hey Bob. It's so great to have you here. I always feel like I should have prepared for an introduction. I always forget to do it. So, but I'm a native Austinite. 64 and let's see, I'll be 65 in December. So 64 in whatever quarters. And I'm looking forward to demystifying Medicare. That's where I'm at. That's my introduction.
Great. And then we'll let world famous Bob go last um, because she is by far the most, I think, the most impressive. But I am Sparkle Williams. I've been going as Governor Sparkle because I've been running for governor for the last several months. And it's been quite a trip, and it's been very interesting, and it makes me really appreciate uh, just the good friends that we have here in Austin. And like I say, world famous Bob in particular has saved my life by the rainbow connections which he's formed. But I'll let world famous Bob go ahead and talk about that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Governor Sparkle. And Susie, it's really nice to meet you. I'm so happy to be on the Susie and Sparkle Show, the Sparkle and Susie Show. I think you could just flip that either way and it sounds great. My name is World Famous Bob. That's my legal name. And I go by Bob when I'm not wearing a wig, when I'm off stage. My pronouns are she, he, they. And I met Sparkle because I started 8 years ago. I moved here from New York City and I was a program coordinator at SAGE, the nation's largest LGBTQ elder advocacy and programs and services organization. And when I moved here, I wanted to start the same thing here. So I started a meetup because I didn't know anyone. I knew one person, and I started putting events on it. And that's the Fun Force, and that's kind of the precursor to Rainbow Connections ATX. And that's how I met Sparkle. She started coming to events. So I am the program coordinator and co-curator, co-founder of Rainbow Connections ATX, which is a program of family elder care, a really wonderful Austin nonprofit. And yeah, I've lived many lives, but I'll just leave my intro with that.
Yeah, we'll let Susie ask the first question.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you.
Happens all the
Thank
time.
you. I was going to say my first question was to ask you about Rainbow Connections. You answered most of it, but so I guess you got there because you're wanting to expand opportunities for LGBTQIA people who are elderly in all areas of theater, or can you explain more what it
Oh,
is?
sure. So my entire theory is that people in the queer community specifically, because our culture and our history and our history is not only being not recorded, it's being erased, it's being attacked. Because of that, I feel like it's really important to hang out with people of all different ages. So the Fun Force meetup group I started was Austin LGBTQIA2 plus Fun Force, ages 18 to 110, allies welcome. The reason why it was such a long name, Fun Force for short, was because I really wanted people of all ages 18 and over to participate. So when I came up with the phrase 18 to 110, I did it specifically because it catch people look at me and go 110, and already they're talking to me about it. So then I can respond, well, actually our oldest participant's 92 and our youngest one's been 17. How old are you? So my entire perspective, I got a degree in gerontology as well, and I'm a performing artist and a confidence coach and a drag mother and many things. But one of the things I'm setting out to do, so I was really excited to hear you talk about demystifying Medicare, because one of the things I'm set out to do is to rebrand aging. And a couple of the things that really set people away from aging are the desexualization of older bodies. So I have a platform to stop the desexualization of older bodies, and also to demystify death, to uncover death as a process versus this horrible thing that happens, just a part of living. And so those are my approaches. One way that I also am rebranding aging is by having people of all ages hang out together. So these are social programs, these are potlucks, these are museum tours. I did do a spin-off theater project called Amaging, which Sparkle's a star of. And we have monthly storytelling events. We have educational opportunities. In November, we have an advanced directives workshop with a licensed lawyer, and a notary, so you can get everything done, not a will, but advanced directives, what you would like to have your medical wishes be. You could actually come to the workshop and for free get everything done. The people who are invited aren't just the elders in our community. We don't say old or senior or elderly, we say elders, because we hold them with a lot of respect. And people 50 or older are considered an elder in the queer community, because we lost an entire, our community was a tree, and you looked at the trunk, we lost a whole ring of community during the AIDS crisis. So we have been forced into early elderhood. And I often say I've met elders in their 40s, and I would call them yelders, so young elders. Elder isn't really an age, it's a position you take in a community coupled with experience. So you can be a lot older and have no experience, little experience with the queer community, or you can be pretty young and have been forced into too much experience. So my entire thing is hanging out with people older than you is like getting a postcard from your future. And who doesn't want to read that? The other part of that is in the queer community, these postcards can save lives. So when I meet someone who's a 22-year-old trans woman, and I say, have you ever hung out with a really cool 74-year-old trans woman? And they say, no, I've never even seen a 74-year-old trans woman. I'm like, well, just come to one of my events, and you will. And it's been really great. The past 8 years, I've just spent a lot of time and energy building it up. And people, the average age range of attendees at our event, as long as it starts by 8 o'clock, there's a science to it, is 24 to 92. That's the average age range. And it's rare for one of the decades to be missing. So if you are a 60-year-old person, I highly recommend having friends in your 20s. If you're a 20-year-old person, I highly recommend having friends in their 80s. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to do that, right? They're like, where do I find older people? They don't go out. And then the older people might say, well, I don't want to go to clubs, and I don't want to do this and that. So I've created these spaces for people who just want to connect in a social way and in a learning way or a cultural celebration. And it's interesting because if you set it up for people and you do it on the right day and time, they show up, and it's just pure magic when that happens. Allies aren't just welcome, they're needed at this point in Texas, because they're invited into spaces where queer people aren't. And it's just really beautiful to watch people connect across the generations. And I always tell my older friends, don't act like you know everything, because you don't. And that's been really helpful, I think, Sparkle, right? Because that's the other thing. We do tend to think we know what's going on, and it really shuts down listening to people of different walks of life or different ages, to what their real experience is and not just what we think it is.
Bob, you have the most impressive, fascinating story of anyone I've ever heard. How you moved from a not good family, your biological family, into a chosen family. Can you tell us how that was and how you emerged from being to becoming world famous, Bob?
Oh, sure. I can give you the nutshell version. Let's try and do this in 3 minutes. Hold on, I'm going to set a timer because that would be a record. I'm always, timing to me is everything. So let's see if I can actually do this. All right. So I changed my name when I was 15 years old to Bob because of Robert Smith, lead singer of The Cure, which a lot of people are like, oh, really? I'm like, yes, he's still my favorite singer. And I was in a house when I was a young person. It wasn't a home. And there were adults that claimed to be my parents. And I now refer to all of them as my biological family. And it was just a really toxic environment. There was a lot of physical and emotional abuse. There's a lot of undiagnosed mental health situations happening. And so at 15 and a half, I left home. I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to immerse myself in the queer culture of New York City. I had since I was 10 and saw Fame, the original movie. And so I left in 1988. I was living in West Hollywood with my best friend Brant. I was 16 at the time. I had an apartment and 3 jobs, and I got a fake ID that said I was 19, which I'm so proud of still, because no one lies about being 19. You can't drink for 2 years. It's, everybody lies to get into bars. Nobody lies about being 19. So I was very savvy for being a kid on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And that's basically when I started creating my own family, right? So Brant is still my best friend, and he's the person that whisked me away in his Camaro to Hollywood and saved my life. And I often credit Brant with not only saving my life, but giving me a reason to live it. Because it's one thing to be here and it's another thing to have a purpose. I just continued to build my chosen family from there. And yeah, I mean, that's how I left home, and that's how I left the house I was in and created a home for myself. 2 minutes and 3 seconds, Sparkle.
Very good. Susie, can you ask the next question?
That was very good. You're such a good guest for many
Thank you.
reasons, but no one's ever timed themselves. I have so many different questions. Gosh, because I looked you up before the show because I'd heard about you, but I didn't know about you. And one of the things I enjoyed watching was the Candy Box Burlesque at the
Yeah.
and that was so much fun in Birmingham, UK in 2008, the Martini Time, which is, I'll let you describe it because it's amazing. But one of the questions I was wondering about is there elder representation in burlesque now?
100%. So I emceed the Burlesque Hall of Fame Living Legends Titans of Fame showcase for 15 years.
Could you say
the Burlesque Hall of Fame, which is a museum actually sadly that they just shut down in Vegas, but the collection is alive and rotating. And so the Burlesque Hall of Fame had a fundraiser once a year for an entire weekend in Las Vegas. And for every Friday of the weekender was the Living Legends Titans of Tease showcase. It was the legends of burlesque, all ages 60 to 91 performing. And we brought the legends out on stage. They blew us away. And I had the honor of not just emceeing that show for 15 years. I recently just passed the baton on, if you will. But through that time period, really becoming close friends with a lot of the burlesque legends. And, as time goes on, we lose them. And that's the thing. People aren't here forever, but the impact that they've created in my life is here for the rest of mine, for sure. So yeah, it's the older you are in burlesque, the more applause you get, actually. It's really great.
Bob, you have always been so involved with youth and trying to help the young community, the young trans, non-binary community, and allies as well. Do you have a message you'd like to give them? This is a tough time, as you know, for all of us who are trans, but particularly young trans individuals.
Yeah, I can just share what saved me, right? So I'm queer and I'm non-binary, and we weren't even using terms like queer and non-binary in the 80s because I am so high femme presenting, and the doctors screamed girl when I came out. I was never allowed to be non-binary. I was never allowed to be queer. You know, it was very there was a certain way you had to look to be that. And so I just want to, the first thing I want to say to younger people, especially trans and non-binary or questioning people, is thank you. Thank you for expanding the space for people to be themselves. And I think a lot of you may not be aware of how restrictive it was before you all really opened up some breathing space as far as expanding the language, expanding the terms, expanding the need to not have a term if you don't want to. It was really like a cafeteria tray, like one of those plates where each item has its own section, but it never mixes. That's how it was in the 1980s and the 1990s when I was a young queer person. And it's just a lot. I feel like there's a space for me at the table now because of the work that the younger people have done. So even if you're watching this or listening and you're like, I haven't done anything, I'm a young trans person, but I haven't done anything. The truth is you have. This entire generation and the generation that came before you, the little bit older one, and the generation that's coming up behind you, the little bit younger one, you're shifting how gender is viewed, you're shifting how it's expressed, you're shifting the gender roles in society beyond what we ever could have pushed it to. So the first thing I want to say is thank you. And I can only share what saved me. And what saved my life was finding people who loved and respected me for who I am and let me love and respect them back for who they are. I went through some of the darkest times and almost died several times because it was so hard to be who I was. And when I found my chosen family, and even if it's just one or two people, that's more than enough. When I found my chosen family and I started building it, that's when I realized that together we could go through anything. And that's what saved me. So I just want to encourage people to remember that you're not alone. Not everyone's really outgoing like I am, and I understand that. Some people are more shy or introverted. Thank goodness. It comes with its own set of problems, but there is a really thriving online community. And you can even text, if you're feeling like weird or you need support, you can text the Trevor Project now. You don't have to call. You used to have to call a voice phone call, if you can imagine, and be like, I need help, which is really hard to say when you're in a situation where you actually do need help, right? So find each other and love each other and respect each other and just be there for each other. And if you're having a hard time finding other people, look at any youth groups closest to you, right? So youth groups are going to filter through and not let weirdos and creeps in because you do not want to hang out with weirdos and creeps. I'm talking about like perverts and stuff. You don't want that. So if you're in the middle of rural America, look to the nearest city and just find out if they have anything online, if they have socials online, or if there's anything you can access online, and just find each other, because that's how you're going to get through anything.
I love how I heard you defining community. It could just even be one person or two people. So, because I'm in my mid-60s and I still think I don't have a big enough community, but I really do have a small set of very close friends, and then wider groups of people that aren't as close, but they are, community. And I think that's really important, because I think that it's so easy to look at things quantitatively instead of qualitatively. I was reading somewhere in some interview you did, and if I remember what it was, the quote, it was like, you were talking about the history of growing up in a dysfunctional family, like a lot of us have. And if I remember the quote, it was something like, and because of that, you had to create family. And so the only people you have in your life are people who love you.
Yeah.
And that's just perfect.
That's true. So none of my biological relatives are allowed to contact me.
Mm.
And, they're not they're not dying to either. Yeah, none of them are, because I deserve to be respected and I deserve to be loved. And if they can't do that, then they're not allowed in my life. And that's kind of what I'm saying, right?
Mhm.
Like, you got to weather the storm while you have to weather the storm. But as soon as you can get out safely
Mhm.
and get into the world. And before then, even try to find your people, because Brant was the person who was a few years older than me and helped me escape, right? And I didn't escape. I looked the adults in my house. I don't call them parents because they didn't raise me. I raised myself. My friends helped. I looked them straight in the eyes and said, I'm leaving. I'm moving to Hollywood. And we can do this one of two ways. I can check in with you every now and then, or I cannot tell you where I'm going and you'll never hear from me again. And, you know, I checked in every now and then, but I got to a point in my life where I was doing a lot of work on myself. I was doing a lot of like self-awareness work and building up my self-esteem. I didn't think I deserved love or respect. I thought there was something wrong with me for years, because why would the people who brought me into this world hate me so much if I was worth loving? And I really thought there was something wrong with me, and I would be so lucky if anyone would love me. And it's taken, I'm 53, it's taken decades of therapy and getting sober 28 years ago and not doing drugs and alcohol and writing and like just taking risks and failing all the time, which is like the best thing you can do in life, because it means you're taking risks. It means you're trying, you know? And I'm still learning, I'm still uncovering things, and I still have pockets of low self-esteem all the time. But yeah, I only let people in my life who love me. And when people talk about, some of my drag kids talk about difficult biological relations, right? And they chose to stay in their biological, depending on how they look at it. They chose to keep those people in their life. Whenever they come to me for advice, I'm like, I can't give it to you because I don't know how to walk that balance. Not to say if the biological people in my life, if they put forward a little effort, I would have learned to walk that balance, but there was no effort. So I just walked away.
It's so hard when because we learn that our family of origin, they're supposed to be our tribe. And
Blood is thicker than water, right?
yeah, and it's like, but but we deserve to be happy. And that's a hard one for a lot of people. Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
of course, my pleasure. When people say blood is thicker than water, um, but what if the call is coming from inside the family, right? Like, does that mean you're supposed to love your abuser? Like, I don't believe in that. I understand that culture, and for me, it's a fairy tale to have that, right? And some people have that in reality, and they're like, well, no matter what, that's your family. And I'm like, no, because family supports one another, family loves one another, family respects one another, family challenges one another to be the best versions of themselves, calls one another out lovingly when, like, hey, you're not being your best self right now, like what you just did was actually not great, right? Like, has the courage to say those things. And there's a lot of shame around, but that's your mom. And I'm like, no, it's not. My mom is Jackie Beat, she's my drag mother. So there's a lot of shame around being a child who doesn't talk to their older parents. And uh, I just think that it's not appropriate. You don't always know somebody's journey, right? You don't always know why they're not talking, and not everything can be worked out. So that's a hard reality, but it is the reality in some situations.
Bob, I'm sorry, Bob, I am so impressed with what you have done with Rainbow Connections and the predecessors. And I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to know how to get involved. You talked about Campfire, which is at the Vortex. Would you tell us just how somebody can get involved with Rainbow Connections and how one can support it if you're interested in providing assistance to this wonderful group?
Absolutely. So you can find all of our events. Come and meet us. So you can meet us virtually online. We have a monthly Zoom tea social. People join us from all over the world. We usually have 8 to 12 people. It's perfect. And then we also have an online caregiver support group if you're LGBTQIA2+, or if you're not, but you're caring for somebody who is. That's a free monthly service online. We have occasionally more online programs like our seasonal book club, 4 books a year, 1 each season, the summer selection, the fall, so on. And we pick the book and then we all discuss it online. And that's also online. So even if you're not in Austin, Texas, you can connect with us. You can absolutely connect with us. And it takes a village. So you can go to rainbowconnectionsatx.org, rainbowconnectionsatx.org, and all of our events are listed there. Our in-person events, all of them are free. Everything online's free. All events are free. All events are fully ADA compliant. All events are near a bus stop, and all events are near free parking. So it's really important to me that there's no barriers to participating. And I just say, come out and meet us, right? And if you're like, I'm not sure, just come to Zoom Social then. You can get kind of a feeling of what we are. We're just a group of people that you can come in and out as much as you want. You could just come to one event a year. These are just pockets of queer joy and soft landings that you deserve. And you don't have to put the work into creating them. You just show up, and that's the magic at the events. I create the space. I listen to what people want. I create the environment. I create the opportunity. And then I get to sit back and watch the magic fill the space, which is you. If people wanted to donate, that'd be great. We're in Texas. It's really hard right now for any type of queer programming. And on our website, there's also a donate button. Our story's on our website too. So I highly encourage people to check out rainbowconnectionsatx.org. If you want to volunteer with us and you live here in the Central Texas area, I just always tell people, come to an event and walk up to me and introduce yourself. Because when I'm looking for volunteers, I'm going to look for the people who have been by my side at a few events versus someone I just met through an email. So come and introduce yourself and we'll get you situated. There's a lot of people waiting to meet you.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating, but we're down to our last question, so I'll let Susie ask that. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodness. Okay, I had several questions, but I'll choose one. So this is this is what I ask all the guests that we have, more or less, and it's our version of this is, what do you do to relax? And I'm thinking of how do you find joy? And the way that I'm thinking of it, but it doesn't have to be for you. The way I'm thinking of it is in your more private spaces, because I'm sure that everything that you do, you find joy in. So taking away all of that, whatever that means, how do you find joy?
I love nature. So nature is my church. Love is my God or goddess. And so I love going into a forest. That is my favorite, absolute favorite. I love bodies of natural water that are hot. I just went to Colorado to these beautiful hot springs in the mountains to decompress. And everywhere I go, I have a little travel watercolor journal. And it's just a couple different sized books of watercolor paper. And I take a couple kits with me. And everywhere I go, I collect water from a natural body of water. And the rule is I have to finish the little painting before I leave the place. I can't take the water away with me unless it's in the painting. And then on the back of the little painting, so it's called my watercolor passport, I write the name of the place, the date, and where I got the water from. And so I have these little pieces of places that I've been with me. So I find a lot of relaxation in that. And then when I'm not traveling, I love to have tea. Tea is like my favorite thing. Maybe have tea with a one-on-one person at my home and just really take it down a notch.
Those are beautiful practices. Because I paint myself, so I really connected with a watercolor journal, that idea of using, because I'm assuming you use the water in your watercolors?
Yes. So when I went to Oahu, I got a small bottle of water from the ocean and I made a painting with that water. And then when I went to Colorado just now, we got some water from this creek and I made 2 paintings with that water. And so it's a way of, I say rule, right? The rule is I have to finish the painting before I leave, but that's so I can remind myself, hey, you need to slow down. I have 20 ideas an hour. So I'm like, Bob, you need to slow down. You need to connect with nature and you need to not be in a hurry, but also carve out real time to decompress. And so that's why I don't bring the water home with me, because then it becomes a thing to do. And if I'm gone, it kind of also curates and makes sure that when I go anywhere, I ask people and they say, what do you want to do? I say, can you take me to a body of natural water? That's never a bad question, because then you always end up having this really beautiful moment with the person.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad you have that.
Yeah. What kind of painting do you work with?
I do oil paints and
Ooh.
I'm not very good, but I love doing it.
Yeah. You know what's cool? Kids aren't like, I'm bad at playing.
True. Yeah. I mean,
Isn't that cool?
I like enough what I do,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just say I'm not good at it because I just do it. I don't have a lot of the skills, but I still do it and I just love it actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a professional painter, but I paint.
Well, this has been wonderful. Bob, you've been a fantastic guest. And I'm going to
Thank
stop the
you.
recording now.
It usually takes a few moments.
Well, thank
Yes.
you so much, Sparkle and Susie, for having me on tonight.